Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we're going to do something a little different. There is no poll question, there is just a question. And I'm mainly going to read comments and keep the long-winded responses to a minimum this time. I'll certainly add my 2 cents here and there. But I really just want to read some of the comments, some of the thoughts on this one from all of you. There were a ton of responses, and so let's start with the question itself, which was, if you were given full control of Lucasfilm, what would be your plan to get the Star Wars franchise back on track? And again, there were a ton of responses. I read the vast majority of them. I've clipped out maybe a couple dozen of them, and I'm just going to kind of randomly select, though I'm going to also prioritize some of the top rated ones as well, because that means people agreed with them, so that seems to be what people want. And before we get to those comments, I just want to say thank you to everybody who votes in the polls, who watches any of my videos, or responds in the comments, or responded here. I appreciate all of it, as I appreciate those who support the channel over on Patreon. Thank you so much for that. Alright, and now we're going to begin with what was the top rated comment on the question, which came to us from Janaya, who said, "Uncanon the sequel." Which, yeah, I don't know that that is so much a plan as it is an opening idea, but it is certainly one a lot of people agreed with, or where they would start to put things right, or to fix things with Star Wars, to start over from the sequels and to try it over again seemed to be a very, very common or popular response to this question. Alright, and next one, and another highly rated comment came to us from the disgruntled Imperial, who said, "No matter what stories get told, who gets fired or hired, and what message is decided on, the sequels will be bluntly, publicly decanonized, and George Lucas consulted on Star Wars, the Force, and how to move forward. Sam Witwer gets a seat at the table. He really seems to get the heart of Star Wars." And I very much agree on the George Lucas part. I know a lot of people in their comments or their game plan said just bring him back and put him in control, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. He's 80 years old. He left because he wanted to spend time with his new family, so I don't know that he would come back full-time. I certainly think there's a really good chance he would come back kind of part-time as a consultant, as was suggested here, that he would even show up on set a few times, offer some suggestions, be a producer essentially. And I really do think that might be one of the best ways to kind of reinvigorate some interest in Star Wars, to say, hey, George Lucas is coming back for a project. You got to see it. You got to see his last Star Wars movie or show or whatever it might be. I think that would be the perfect way to get some people back. And Sam Witwer was another suggestion a lot of people had, saying bring him in, make him like the head of the story group, or just make him the story group, which I also tend to agree with. The guy has a real passion for Star Wars. I love listening to him talk about Star Wars. And knowing he was in there kind of dictating and controlling things a bit, I think would be a big, big win for them. Alright, we move on now to this one from Thomas Spatz, who also had a suggestion many people seem to have, which is, if we are being actually realistic, start working on an old Republic series, maybe even animated. It baffles me that they have yet to tap into something that would generate so much hype among, fans. And maybe all they have to do is turn those trailers for the Old Republic MMO into full-on movies, and you have something there, because those things are phenomenal. If you have never watched them, just go watch them. You don't even need to have ever played the game or know anything about the Old Republic to really enjoy them. And so I do think there could be a serious market for animated Old Republic content, though I think you're better off going live action. I think you're always going to draw in more people if you go live action, though animation is cool. I'm not dissing it or anything. I just think there is, unfortunately, a stigma around it for some people, that they don't want to watch cartoons, and so they'll never watch them, no matter how much you try to tell them. This isn't a cartoon, this is actually a serious and good show. Anyway, I love the idea. I think some way, somehow, they need to give us some Old Republic content. Maybe they were waiting for the Knights of the Old Republic remake to kind of relaunch the time period. I don't know. But I think Old Republic content, again, some way, somehow, would be a great idea. Alright, next one is from AJ Starhiker, who said, set up to replace Disney sequels with the Thrawn trilogy and get Timothy Zahn on board for the adaptation. And this, again, was another idea I saw a lot of people kind of suggesting, or part of their plan. And I certainly do think there is a good idea here. I think you should bring in Timothy Zahn and maybe kind of work together with him on the current Mandoverse, because I know I saw a lot of people saying scrap everything from Disney, or keep Rogue One and Andor and maybe Rebels or this or that. But a lot of people didn't seem to want to keep the Mandoverse, which kind of surprised me. I thought more people enjoyed it than didn't. Maybe certain aspects of it aren't so good. But I thought people would want to keep it. Maybe that's a result of Mando Season 3, I don't know, or the Ahsoka series not living up to some people's expectations. But anyway, kind of surprised that a lot of people seem to want to ditch the Mandoverse when I do think you could bring in Timothy Zahn now that Thrawn is in live action, Mandoverse, Star Wars, whatever you want to call it, and have him kind of redo his trilogy in a manner of speaking from this point on, from what the Mandoverse has created. I mean, I don't think it would be a perfect adaptation. It couldn't really be a perfect adaptation, but I think that would be a better direction to go than just erasing everything Disney has done. I don't know, would love to hear from all of you on what you would keep and what you wouldn't keep if they did decide to kind of try to embrace the Thrawn trilogy. Do you just erase it all or everything from Return of the Jedi on that Disney has done? Or do you keep some parts of it and try to interweave it together? Okay, and moving right along after a somewhat long-winded response, we have this one from Beloved Tyrant who said, "No movie ever gets announced again until the second draft of the script is on my desk and I am happy with its progress." This may have been my favorite response, not because it was the best game plan, no offense, but because it actually just makes a ton of sense given what has been going on with Disney and Lucasfilm and Star Wars movies, that we have had so many of them announced, and we always hear about how they've hired this person to do something and they'll just figure it out later, instead of actually having game plans or ideas, even just the fundamental idea of a movie in place, it seems. And so just a change in mindset about how these movies even get made would be nice, that if you want to do a Star Wars movie, you don't just get hired and we'll figure it out later. You have to come in and have a script, an idea, everything all fleshed out and ready to go. And if we're happy with it here at Lucasfilm, assuming we were running it, you get the green light, and then we're already 10 steps ahead from any other movie that Disney and Lucasfilm have announced in the last 5 years or whatever. Alright, now up we have this one from DT0Me who said, "I would consult with George Lucas and some of the other writers and producers who worked on 1 through 6 to see what advice they would give at this point. Moving forward, I would make anything made under Disney Legends, so it's still headcanon for fans of the Disney-era Star Wars, but no longer limits future projects. I'd pause any current developments and review them in detail, and probably have Lucasfilm take a 2-year hiatus to evaluate where things are at and what to do moving forward. It's too late to undo some damage, but it could be salvaged and rebuilt while being respectful to the handful of sequel fans." And I really do like the idea of trying to somehow be respectful or courteous of the people who like the sequels, because I have no ill will towards you. I know I say it all the time, but there are always people in the comments who try to say, I like the sequels, as if that's going to anger me somehow. And I never understand why you think that's going to make me mad. Why would I get mad if you like something I don't? I don't get mad when people don't like something that I do. So why would it work in the opposite way or in reverse? I have no problem with you. Love the sequels all you want. I look at them as something that unfortunately did far more harm than good and had no plan behind them and had no real cohesive strategy behind them and just are a mess of 3 movies. And that kind of act as a obstacle or a blockade to future progress for the franchise, both in terms of what it did for the story and in terms of fans not willing to give them a chance because of it. And so again, no hate towards you if you like the sequels. I get it, you like them, that's fine. But I do think, again, unfortunately, Star Wars would be better off without them there. Okay, and now we go to this comment from Mandius Lundell, who said, "I think a lot of the issues are more structural, that the rot has more to do with corporate executives and the downstream effects, shoddy hiring, corporate meddling, lore breaking, misallocation of resources, a lack of understanding of the subject matter. So basically, clean house, story group, Kennedy, maybe even Filoni at this point. Tony Gilroy showed what quality storytellers can do in this wonderful universe. It's time to get a group of executives who will hire quality people, give them space to create within clearly defined lore boundaries, and then renew, cancel based on quality rather than initial viewership numbers. And/or deserved 5 seasons, Kenobi should have been canceled before the first came out. We need leaders who can recognize that without a spreadsheet saying, down numbers equal bad." And yes, I agree with, I think, everything you had to say there. And it kind of goes along with this one that I'm going to add quickly, this comment from Smuckins, who said, "They need to start with an idea rather than money," which I do think is the root of all problems in a manner of speaking, that when you're trying to make money, you're not trying to necessarily make great Star Wars, even though great Star Wars is going to make you a lot of money. It's like they have it backwards. They don't understand that if you put in the resources that are required without, again, misallocating resources, which potentially happened with the Acolyte. I don't know how that cost $230 million. But if you get the right creative people, if you give them the resources and everything else they need, they're going to make quality. Look at what Tony Gilroy did with Andor. There are other examples. Look what Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 were. I thought they were quality. But if you start with getting creative people who actually know and care about and understand Star Wars, if you give them the resources, if you give them the space without giving them so much space that they maybe do something wonky, I do think you need some limitations there. But if you prioritize that, there's a really good chance you're going to make some good Star Wars that, again, like I said, is going to make money. It's a win-win for everybody. Disney makes the money they so desperately want. Fans get the Star Wars, the good Star Wars they so desperately want. All right, let's do one more here. It's a bit of a longer one. There were some that were really, really long, and I appreciate you took the time to write them. They were good. I read them, but they were a little too long for the video. But anyway, we have this one from EarthBit who said, delete the sequels. This is order of business number 1. Reinstate the EU at the same level of canon that they had before. That is, taken as canon unless contradicted by a film or show. Novels, comics, etc. relating to the sequel trilogy are given the same treatment the EU currently has. Non-canon bonus stories. I suppose we can put the sequels here too, if we must, I guess. Introduce plans to make films and or series out of the suitable EU content and bring in their original creators to have at least some level of creative control. For example, if adapting the Thrawn trilogy, bring in Timothy Zahn as a consultant. As for new plans that aren't adaptations, we go in a totally different direction. The Skywalker saga is 6 episodes long. Any potential new sequel trilogy will have Luke as a real mentor figure, but it will not revolve around the Skywalkers. The galaxy is a big place, bring in some new names and new adventures. All directors and project leads must be fans of the franchise. I don't want anyone trying to reshape it in their own image. All projects, big and small, that are intended to be considered canon must pass the inspection of a lore specialist or team of specialists. Liberties can be taken here and there, but flagrant violations of prior canon will be filtered out. Don't be so blatant with the messaging. It's good for your stories to have a theme or a message, but if it feels ham-fisted, it gets the veto. Tell Dave Filoni to cool it with the retcons. We can go against lower canon, but don't be so cavalier about it. Be respectful to the creators who gave people content they love. Hire Thor Skywalker as a lore specialist. Maybe he can be the lead lore specialist. What do you say, Thor? I'll even pay you. And you wouldn't even have to pay me. I would do it for free. And that goes for current Disney and Lucasfilm as well, not just your hypothetical version of it. And I did like a lot of your ideas, most of them, in fact. But seriously, I don't think they should necessarily hire me as their lore consultant or anything like that. But I would, free of charge, be happy to give them my thoughts on anything they might do. Now, I don't think they'd ever do that. I'm not suggesting they actually do it. But I do think it is not the worst idea in the world to every now and then ask people who have a pretty good idea of what the response will be from fans before they do something. Have them take a look and just give input and potentially make some changes. I guarantee you, myself and others that love Star Wars, like a Sam Witwer, I think he would be the perfect guy to hire. Not me, hire him. But I think hiring somebody, or again, I think he'd do it for free. I'd do it for free. A lot of fans would do it for free. But running things past the fans from time to time, who really care, might be your best way to avoid some of these landmines that they just keep stepping right into. I read most of the comments and responses here. I stopped at the bitter end because it just started to spin when I got to the bottom. It wouldn't load anymore. So I read the vast majority, and you know what I figured out here, or became rather self-evident? The people responding here, they really care. Maybe, yeah, some of them were a little extreme with their responses, but they really care. They want Star Wars to be better. There are so many fans out there who just want you to figure it out, who feel like you haven't cared, who feel like you hire the wrong people or have the wrong motivations or trying to pitch an agenda over pitching good stories. And if you would just open your eyes and open your ears and listen, you would realize the fans, they're actually still here. They haven't left, even though your numbers aren't looking good on your spreadsheets. We're still here. We just want you to care somewhere in the same capacity that we do. We want you to make good Star Wars. We don't want you to prioritize making money. And if you did that, if you made the good Star Wars, like I said before, the money would be there. And everyone wins. You get what you want. We get what we want. It's a happily ever after. Well, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. What is your game plan for saving Star Wars, assuming you didn't post that in response to the question? Or what do you think about what I or anyone else had to say in this video about their plans to save Star Wars? Whatever you think, whatever the case may be, you know what to do. Leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.